You don't get to just say that to me. You have to show me the cost.
Yeah. Now, but this time, what I'd like to sort of scrape your brain on, if I can, because it's a topic that's bugging me at the moment, is app modernization.
Yes.
Because to give you a little bit of context, I'm a product owner for our invoicing software here called TimePro.
Right.
And I have all these ideas for new features that I always want to do, but the developers are always telling me there's too much technical debt and we need to get rid of AngularJS and we need to move to .NET Core. And that is such a huge ongoing chunk of work that I never get my features across the line.
Well, and always my question when you talk about modernization like that or replacement of old libraries is like, what's the benefit? You know, where does that lie? Like, yeah, AngularJS is a few years old, and the migration path off of it up to quote unquote modern Angular is not a trivial piece of effort either. But what's broken? That means we have to do that. Like, and I'm not saying that there isn't something. I'm saying like it's not. You don't get to just say that to me. You have to show me the cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the interesting aspects of technical debt from a product owner perspective is that it does slow down the rate of features. Right. When you have those other so many different frameworks involved in a given project, it's like, well, to implement this feature, we have to work in all these different places. It's going to take longer to build the feature. And so now I have to do this math of, well, so how much time does it take to retire that library? And how much time will we get back in feature construction once we do? And of course, sooner is always better, right? Because the more stuff we build dependent on the old library, the harder it's going to be to remove it later.
100%, yeah.
But that's a curve, right? Like there's a set of projections there about the cost of removing that thing versus the cost of leaving it in play. Like he sort of says, okay, at this point it makes sense or it doesn't make sense.
For us, we are building this thing and rebuilding this thing. It feels like a rebuild. Mm-hmm. With the lovely new modern app shiny thing that the developers like working on. It's easy to find staff to work on. They don't bang their head against the wall when they want to work on it, when they're told they're on the bench and they need to work on this.
Right.
So there's a lovely shiny light at the end of this tunnel. But it brought me to a broader topic, which is app modernization in general. When you build your own app instead of doing a software as a service, paying a license, you spend an upfront cost to build the thing. And then are you then sort of in for a lifetime of rebuilding that thing over and over and over again?
Only if the old frameworks cost you something in features in some meaningful way, right? I think that when you talk about typical app modernization today, we happen to be in the heterogeneous client cloud modernization cycle, where clearly we are dealing with customers that have phones and tablets and PCs, all of which have slightly different client needs, and we are moving more and more workloads onto the cloud, and we know that just shifting VMs to the cloud is a very expensive way to go. So it's like, can we get into that services layer of the cloud to really get benefit from it? And both of those pieces have been going on long enough now that I would argue we're at the height of that right now, where a significant number of customers are now, we're getting to the point where it's no longer just that's a leading edge cool thing to do and it'll give us an advantage to, if we don't get this done soon, our business performance is going to be impaired by not having it. So that's an interesting transition period, but it is a transition period. You know, gradually, new greenfield stuff is all coming in, prepared to work with multiple clients, prepared to operate in the cloud. So it's just what apps need to be modernized and how they want to be modernized. I'm fascinated by the new tools emerging to allow us to create those kinds of modern experiences without rewriting code. Some of the more app virtualization tools and virtual desktop technologies, all of which got accelerated because of the pandemic. Because you had these old chunks of software that really only worked inside of the company perimeter, and now that people continue to work from home, like, how are we going to solve this? And so they're shipping them up into like Azure Virtual Desktop and saying, it's still a terrible app that's really client server and has to run in a small camp, but that small client's now in the cloud, and you get access to that VM through your Azure credentials.
So we as a software consultancy have been incredibly busy ever since COVID hit.
Without a doubt, yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of it, is people suddenly shifting their work environment and not just suddenly needing a remote desktop to work from home, but actually re-engineering and re-architecting the whole ecosystem.
I mean, and I think the broader story there is getting away from perimeter security into zero trust security, which is such a fundamental thing. Like, so why is so much stuff being affected by this migration to the cloud and this new workspace? It's really because we've fundamentally changed the security perimeter. How we identify stuff and the relationships between software has changed, and that is impactful all up and down the stack, right? We in the panic that was early 2020, we did a lot of VPN workarounds and so forth. Like, you just needed to make stuff work. But as you're hitting the limits and all of that, you're trying to do a better job of how does this software become great, you do have that sort of reassessment of, are we better off rewriting this, you know, in a Power Apps approach, right? Which is natively cloud and natively multi-client. Or can we put it in a can because so few people need to use it? Like, I'm not going to put a lot of energy into that until we can retire that piece of software out. Like, I think there's a lot of work, look across the spectrum, especially of internal applications, and say, like, what do we really need to do here? What's short-lived, what's long-lived, and what do we want to spend money on?